Okay, so James Gunn has officially released a video regarding his takeover of the DCU, and we're about to find out what his plans are for the first phase. I'm not sure what they're calling it yet. The video is about 6 minutes long, so I'm going to go ahead and react to it and give my initial thoughts.
Everybody, I'm James Gunn. I'm the co-CEO of DC Studios. So as many of you know,
Co-CEO.
disconnected in film and television for a long time. And it's one of, our jobs, mine and Peter's, is to come in and make sure the DCU is connected in film, television, gaming, and animation. That the characters are consistent, played by the same actors, and it works within one story. And if something is outside of that, like Matt Reeves' Batman or Todd Phillips' Joker or Teen Titans Go, that it is clearly labeled as DC Elseworlds, outside of the mainstream DCU continuity.
Interesting. So they're continuing Matt Reeves' Batman and Joker.
Next year. First, we have Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Shazam has always been off kind of in his own part of the DCU, so he connects very well. That moves directly into The Flash, a fantastic movie that I really love that resets the entire DC universe. Then to move it.
Interesting.
A fantastic film about a kid who's a marvelous part of the DCU, and then into Aquaman 2, which leads directly into our next few projects, which I'm going to tell you about now.
So they're still connected?
Along with a group of very talented writers, have started to map out an 8 to 10 year plan of what DC Studios will be in film, television, and gaming. This first chapter is called Gods and Monsters.
Nice. Now, I like that title.
Is a part of the first chapter. It's not the entire first chapter.
Okay.
The first project is Creature Commandos. Creature Commandos is an animated series.
Interesting.
Something we're going to do that's a little bit different at DC is we're going to have characters move into animation, out of animation, usually having the same actor play their voice as who plays them in live action.
Cool.
The next project up is Waller. This is a story of Amanda Waller played by the Doom Patrol.
Is it a comic?
It is a fantastic story that's out of this world, and I can't wait for people.
Interesting.
Okay, next up is the big one, the true beginning of the DCU. This is called Superman Legacy. This is being written by me. I'm in the middle of it. I'm having a great time doing it.
Nice.
And Superman will be released into theaters July 11th, 2025.
Wow. Wow. So these are all movies.
Lanterns. This is a story of a couple of Green Lanterns, John Stewart and Hal Jordan, and we have a few other lanterns peppered in there, but this is really a terrestrial-based TV show, which is almost like True Detective, with a couple of Green Lanterns who are space cops watching over Precinct Earth.
I'm excited for that.
Discover a terrifying mystery that ties into our larger story of the DCU. Nice. Next is a big movie called The Authority. The Authority is a passion project of mine. It's based on the marvelous Wildstorm characters we are now bringing into the DCU and will interact with all of our primary DCU characters.
I'm not familiar with any of these characters.
Who think the world is broken and they want to fix it by any means necessary. I think it's a very different look at superheroes. We're doing a television series called Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost is a story of Paradise Island, usually known as Themyscira, which is the birthplace of Wonder Woman.
Okay, so we're getting a lot of setup.
But with all of the inhabitants of Paradise Island.
Wow.
The introduction of the DCU's Batman is the brave and the bold.
What?
And his actual son, Damian Wayne. This is based on Grant Morrison's great comic book.
Interesting.
Favorite Robin. He's a little assassin who Batman tries to get in line, and so this is the story of the two of them.
Wow.
And the beginning of sort of the Bat family in the DCU.
The beginning. They're starting with Damian.
Called Booster Gold. Booster Gold is one of the comics' really popular cult heroes. He is a fascinating guy. He's a loser from the future who uses future technology to come back to present day and become a superhero so that people will love him.
I think people are going to like this.
A story of imposter syndrome on an HBO Max series. One of my favorite comic book series from last year was Tom King's run on Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And so we're going to turn that into a big science fiction epic film. Now, Superman is a guy who was sent to Earth in...
Finally giving Supergirl a movie,
in this story,
the spotlight.
She is a character who was raised on a chunk of Krypton. She watched everybody around her perish in some terrible way. So she's a much more jaded character. And that brings me to Swamp Thing, the last thing we're going to talk about. A very dark horror story in the origins of the monster who is Swamp Thing. And although it's totally outside of the rest of the DCU, it will still feed into the rest of the stories. Anyway, those are the stories that I can tell you about right now. I've loved the DC characters since I was a child. They're incredibly important to me. I knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do something very different.
It seems like it's going to be different.
All of these movies and TV series is that the director's vision and the vision of the writers and all of the creators is unique and something special. Storytelling is always king. That's all that matters to us. And
There's no copy and paste.
And really give you something different than you've ever seen before. Anyway, thank you, everybody. I appreciate you watching. I hope this was exciting for you because it's really exciting for me. And I can't wait to start to dive into these stories with you guys on this grand adventure. Thank you so much.
All right. That was our first look at the future of the DCU. And I've got to say right off the bat, they're doing things a lot different. Starting off, we know we're getting more of Matt Reeves as Batman and Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. So that's really cool, and how they're continuing those, but keeping them separate from the rest of the DCU. So I think that's cool, at least. I mean, at least they're not cutting those all off and abandoning those. There were a lot of characters that I didn't recognize. Now, I'm a Marvel fan mainly over DC. I do know a little bit of stuff about DC. That being said, there are still plenty of characters that he mentioned in these pictures of concept art that I did not recognize at all. The first show that James talked about was Creature Commandos, and I got heavy Invincible vibes from it. Just the cast and crew of characters look very artsy and creative and different from one another. And I feel like if it takes any sort of beats from Invincible, this could be a really fun show. Not really a heavy hitter, but a fun show. They used concept art a bunch in this preview, and the next thing they talked about was Amanda Waller getting her own show, and she's played by Viola Davis again, which is amazing. She was great casting for the older DC films, and I'm glad they're keeping her in here. Interesting to see what the story is going to be. Who knows? Now, of course, probably the biggest announcement that they made here was Superman Legacy. This is going to be a movie, I'm guessing. I do not envy the person who has to do casting for this movie, because fans of Henry Cavill and the other Superman movies and other films are very passionate, and it's going to be really hard to fill those shoes. But, you know, I'm excited to see what they do with it. I don't want a copy and paste story, and we'll get into the copy and paste thing later, of things that we've already seen. And it seems like the stuff James Gunn is doing is going to go in that sort of new direction. And he talks about wanting to be unique and letting the writers and directors have their own creative vision. And I think that's really important to kind of stand out from Marvel movies and other franchises. Now, surprisingly, I don't know much about the characters in Green Lantern or those comics, but with that being said, I'm pretty excited, and I'm thinking that this might be my first or second most anticipated thing from this, and that is the Lanterns TV show. Jon Stewart and I believe another character that he mentioned. James said that this would be sort of a true detective-like story, and that gets me really excited because it can kind of be down to earth while still being this epic, grand superhero story. He then talked about this movie called The Authority, and I was looking around. I didn't really recognize any of the characters that were shown, but I think this is a good thing. We're not getting characters that we know all their history. We don't know how their future plays out. We're getting a bunch of people that we can get introduced to, and this is the start of the DCU, so it's important to imprint on your audience these new characters and why they're so important. So I'm going to watch this with a careful eye. I'm not too familiar, like I said, with any of the characters, but, you know, we'll see. You have to remember back in 2008 when Iron Man came out, he wasn't necessarily a household superhero name, but if you think of Iron Man now, you're putting him at the top of the pyramid when it comes to Marvel characters. And I have a feeling that James could probably do this with some of these characters. Paradise Lost is another interesting concept that he talked about. This is going to be a live action TV series for HBO, and James said that it was like Game of Thrones. Now, if he's being truthful to that, I'm super excited. The Themyscira were probably my favorite element from the Wonder Woman movies, especially the first one. So if they're able to elaborate on this story and tell a deep, rich, dark, R-rated sort of story, I'm all in for it. My favorite announcement has to be Batman, the Brave and the Bold. It's based on a comic run where Damian Wayne, the son of Bruce Wayne, is Robin. And if James is saying this is the beginning of the Bat family, I have a feeling they're going to kind of twist the whole Robin story and make Damian be the one who dies to the hands of Joker. But we'll see. I'm glad they're finally doing Robin. We've seen Robin in Easter eggs in the background, but we've never had him front and center. Now, this movie, I really, really hope dives into the relationship more, because we know the origin of Batman. We've heard it a million times. But not too many people are familiar with the story arcs of each Robin, especially Damian Wayne. Booster Gold is going to be a TV series, and this just looks like fun. The premise of a guy who was a loser and went back in time to become a superhero, that's just good fun. And James is really good with those sort of comedic relief type scenarios. He's great with Guardians, Peacemaker, but he also adds that special serious tone with the comedic relief that is just magic. And I feel like he's going to pull that off again with this series. Something I didn't expect was for them to do 2 super characters at the beginning of the DCU. We have Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and this is going to be a movie. And I don't really have anything to expect. I haven't watched the show Supergirl, and I'm really going to go into this with open eyes and hopefully am going to be blown away. The last thing James brought up was the film Swamp Thing, and this got me really, really excited because he said that it was going to be a horror story, and I am all for the horror aspect of superheroes. Werewolf by Night was probably one of Marvel's best projects out of Phase 4, and if we get something even remotely close to that in a feature-length film, this is going to rock, and people are going to love it. At the end, James talks about how creators, directors, producers, writers all have their own creative vision, and he wants them to execute that vision and have every project be unique. This is important because Marvel has occasionally fallen into this process of telling the same sort of story over and over again. If DC is trying to be completely unique, that's fine, but they need to really reel in the interconnective tissue between the films and TV shows, or else it's going to kind of seem like one-off shoots. It seems like the films that are coming out, Shazam, Aquaman, etc., those are going to be connected. We'll see when they come out, but if they're going to start the DCU with Shazam, Blue Beetle, The Flash, they really have to do some good story building to build out this world that they're about to create, or I don't see it going anywhere. Of course, I'm going into this with skeptical eyes because we've seen what has happened with DC over the years. They've had some fantastic projects, and then they've had some projects that have been stuck in development, have disappointed fans, and outright made people angry. I think the most important thing for DC to do is tell cohesive stories that are interconnected, that lead up to something. I know it's a generic formula, but that's what they need to build this franchise, because we don't have characters like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Batman, etc. all teaming up right off the bat. They're trying to build it from the ground up and build towards those characters, so they can do it. And I especially have faith in James Gunn because of the things that he's produced before. Overall, I'm not particularly blown away by these announcements, but it does give me hope. If we're getting a new Superman, if we're getting Batman and Robin, and we're getting introduced to characters that we haven't seen before, do it. Let's do it. Let's have a strong start. Let's keep it going, and let's keep giving the audience what they want. Guys, if you could like and subscribe, I would really, really appreciate it. We're almost at 40 followers. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm new, so we're getting there. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you guys in the next one.